Hello everyone, welcome to Winged Horse Designs. I'm Donna Goodwin. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located in Brookings, South Dakota. Today I'm going to show you 5 different cards. So a couple of them here and a couple of them and a few more here. I'm going to show you 5 different ways of using VersaMark. Now there are several different ways of using VersaMark. I'm simply going to show you 5 of them. If I tried to show you all of them, we'd be here for days and days and days. So I'm going to go ahead and switch cameras and we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so here's a better view of the 5 different cards. So we're going to start with this one and then we'll move on to this one and then this one and then this one, and then finally this one. I do not have the measurements and the descriptions, measurements and supply list in the description because there's 5 different cards and that would make the description very, very long. However, there is a link. Give me a little bit of time until after the live is over and I will finish off that blog post and then you can click. The link for that is in the description. It's just not live yet. And that will take you over, and the blog post on my website has the measurements for each card and the supply list for what I used. So before we get started, actually not last week, 2 weeks ago, I did this magic slider card on my Monday live. And during that live, this card went out to Betty. And for those who came back in and liked, commented, and shared, this card is going to Deb. So congratulations, ladies. And Betty sent me this cute little ladybug card. Isn't that so cute? Whoops, upside down here. So she's got some buffalo check and some polka dots, and then the cute little ladybugs. And then on the inside, it's just simply blank so that you can write whatever you like. So welcome, Terry. And for those of you who are coming in on replay, welcome. So I'm not going to show you start to finish on cards today because there's 5 different cards, but I'm going to talk about the different things we're doing, and then I'll talk about how I finished up those cards. And I did ask a question. I asked, what is your favorite summertime activity? And Terry has said she loves traveling to see her son when the weather is nice. So I am going to bring in part of this card. Now I have all of this stacked up behind me, so hopefully I won't knock it over. So the first way that you can use, and I'm using two-tone floral for this one. The first thing that you can do with VersaMark is super, super simple. Just take a card base. In this case, it's Moody Mauve. Take your VersaMark ink. And I'm going to put a piece of scrap paper behind here to protect my desk. And just simply stamp randomly with VersaMark ink on your card front. And what this will do is this just gives it a good watermark, because VersaMark is a watermark ink. And as it dries, it turns darker. I'm not worrying about the inside quite as heavily yet because I know I'm going to be adding things to it. But I just simply, with this card, just stamped, and I just turned my stamp occasionally so that it was going in different directions. Let's go this way. And you can see you end up with this really pretty background. And then later, what I did with this card is I brought in a strip of smoky slate that measures 1 inch by 4 1/4 inch. And I stamped some flowers and some leaves on scrap white paper. And I stamped these in Bubble Bath for the detail, which was this stamp. And then I stamped over that with the detailed piece in Moody Mauve. And then I stamped my leaves in Garden Green, ran them through the die cutting machine and cut them out, and then I've just layered them up on here and put them on with Stampin' Dimensionals. And then I finished it off with these pretty little gems, and these are called sparkle gems, and I thought that the silver was really nice. So here's a better view of the card. Again, just putting a watermark on the background of your card comes in very handy when you don't have designer series paper to do it, but it just gives it a nice, subtle, pretty look. So there's card 1. Please do like, comment, and share. I love reading the comments. And at the end of the video, after questions and answers, we'll draw. And since I'm doing 5 cards this week, I thought it might be fun if I give away 2 cards instead of 1 card. So for this card, I'm going to bring in a piece of basic white, and I'm going to bring in my Stamparatus. Any stamp positioning tool will work. Stampin' Up! No longer sells the Stamparatus, but you can get one in a couple different places. So I have my, because this is you can see it's a pretty solid image. I went ahead and put it in Stamparatus so I could stamp it multiple times and get a nice clear image, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to put the stamp case behind it, and I apologize for all this. I forgot to turn the ceiling fan off. Shame on me. And I'm going to stamp this one in basic gray because I just love gray and blue together. So we're going to ink that up, and by putting the stamp case under there, it just makes it stay perpendicular. It's easier to ink up the stamp. And you might be saying, wait a minute, where's the VersaMark? We'll get there. And I'm just going to stamp this image on. And I just have an old wooden block with a piece of felt glued to it. And you can see that it's a little shy, it's a little light, and I wanted a nice, deep, solid image. So I'm just going to stamp it again. And this is where having a stamp positioner comes in handy, because it's going to come right back into the exact same spot as long as I don't move that paper. And it's getting better, but I think I'm going to do it one more time at least. And you can just keep doing this as often and as long as you like. And I will get to all those questions at the end, so don't forget to ask them. And that's much better. That's a nice dark color. So I'm going to take this plate off and move it. I happen to have a few plates, extra plates, so I already have my sentiment lined up. The important part, give me a moment. I do need to turn that fan off, or we're going to have embossing powder everywhere. So that's another word of advice. If you have a ceiling fan going in the summertime because it's warm out, turn it off before you open up that embossing powder. So I'm going to take my embossing buddy, and it's just an anti-static tool, and I'm going to rub this over my cardstock so that the embossing powder will only stick to the VersaMark. And that, as the fan stops, that grinding sound will go away. And I'm going to ink up my sentiment in VersaMark, and I'm going to bring it down. And I'm going to rub it on. And you can't see anything right now. And I'm going to bring in gold embossing powder. Now you can use paper, or you can take these nice, fun little lidded containers. I like this one because it's big enough I can stick the whole card inside. Now I had VersaMark on the edge. I'm glad that happened. as I can show you, all you need is a little brush, and we can brush this off. And this little mark here happens to be a bit of gray ink. And I'm going to tap that. It still left me, let the camera catch up. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a few little pieces right in here close to the S. So I'm very, very carefully get in there to that and brush those away. The important part is to get your embossing powder on as soon as you can before the VersaMark has a chance to completely dry. I'm going to cover this up. I'm trying something different this time, so bear with me. We'll see if Donna can handle the technology. I recorded the embossing part so that I can talk over it. So let's see how we're going to do here. All right. So I have my nice little tweezers. These are reverse tweezers. And you should see here in a moment that it starts to turn color. And it may or may not show up really well in the video here, this tiny short little video. But as it melts and it turns color, then it's ready to go. There you go. You can almost see it there. So then what we end up with, so I took that piece and I mounted it on a piece of gold foil, just a real thin slice of gold foil so that it would match the gold. And then I put that on Starry Sky. And then on the inside, I've just left it blank. But I like these birds, and I like the fact that you're marvelous. And I can see a lot of options with this particular stamp set. So there's card 2, heat embossing, traditional heat embossing, nothing fancy. All right, for the next one, what if you want a different color? You don't want gold or silver or copper or clear or white or black. And when I was going through trying to clean up a corner of my craft room, I found this old embossing powder that's blueberry bushel, which happens to be a color that came back. So I'm like, oh, I need to keep this. But what if that's not the color I want either? Here's a way you can emboss in any color you want. So for this card, this is embossed. Pottery tends to be glazed, and I wanted this pot to be glazed versus a matte color. So what I did here, and I'm using the earthen textures because I love these vases. I have another one just to make, you're going to want a stamp positioning tool for this. And Irene says she's watching today. Yay, Irene's here. If you're watching on replay, welcome. And there were a lot of new specials that came out last week that I did not mention last week because there were just so many of them. So I'll try to mention those as we're going along. One of them is bonus days. So the entire month of July, we have bonus days. What that means is for buying what you would normally buy anyway, for every $50 here in the United States that you spend, you'll get a $5 bonus coupon that you can redeem in August. Whoop, almost forgot. Where are my sample pieces I wanted to show you? All right, so you're not going to see much of a difference here, and you can only really see it in person. But this one isn't as glossy as this one. And I was embossing on white here. With this one, I inked it up first with the VersaMark, and then I came back and I inked up with Tahitian Tide, and then I added the clear embossing powder. So it has its shine, but not as much shine as this one. With this one, so if you want a high gloss, stamp your color first, clean your stamp, and then stamp again in VersaMark. That way the VersaMark is nice and wet. By stamping the blue on top of it on this one over here, it dried out the VersaMark just a bit. So we want to do the color first and then the VersaMark. So I'm going to stamp this one in Tahitian Tide because that's not a color that we have in an embossing powder. Hello, Linnell. And if you're joining in on replay, ladies, congratulations, or welcome. We are exploring just 5 different ways of using embossing powder. So I'm going to ink this up in the blue. Move the ink pad out of the way so I don't get it all over anything. And then I'm going to clean it with just a damp cloth. Other news that we have, I'm going to dry this off with a lint-free cloth. Just a cloth I'm willing to get all inky. And while it's still in its same place, I'm going to ink it up with my VersaMark. And I'm going to put the VersaMark directly over the blue that we just embossed, or just stamped, excuse me. And this time I'm going to use clear embossing powder. And it just kind of gives a dull look at the moment while that powder's on there. And we will heat emboss this. And you'll see it turn color and get really glossy here. That's how you know that it's done. Look at that turn. Isn't that pretty? And now we have, it's been embossed in Tahitian Tide rather than gold, silver, black, white, just by using clear embossing powder and stamping with VersaMark over an already stamped image. And then you have, so I stamped, this is on a berry burst card base. I've matted it with copper clay. I've used vanilla, very vanilla. I've stamped this base in the berry burst, stamped some leaves. I put a mat on, just a post-it note that was cut to match this, stamped in Granny Apple Green, stamped "You are proof there is good in the world." And then I die cut this piece out that we had embossed, added a couple rhinestones, and on the inside I stamped off and stamped another one of the berry burst and said, you always know just what to say and do. You're proof that there is good in the world. All right, we're down 3 down, 2 more to go. So for this one, this is embossed resist technique, which is an old technique that's been around for a while. And this one just simply says, thank you for everything. And the inside is blank, so you can do whatever you want. There's a couple of details we'll talk about later, but let's start with our embossing. And for that one, I brought in Color and Contour. It's been around for a while. This is a photopolymer stamp. So we're going to need our mat. We're going to bring that in, And like I said, all these measurements are over on my blog post shortly after the video is done. Don't forget to use your embossing buddies so that the embossing powder only sticks to where the VersaMark is. I'm going to stamp this flower. And I think we'll go this way. I'm going to stamp that there. And then I'm going to try and get the leaf on there without getting it. And see, you can't see this, so I'm thinking it's right about here. This is a good spot. Hopefully it didn't overlap too awfully much. And I'm going to do this with white. And now you can see it here before it's embossed. Once it's embossed, it turns really clear and it's going to be hard for you to see. But trust me, it'll pop like magic after we're done. So once the powder's on, you have a little bit more time. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp the sentiment. Don't forget that embossing buddy. And I'm going to try really hard to get this in the center. In the center and straight. That's where I should have used a Stamp-A-Majig as well. This time I'm going to use black embossing powder because the white, since I'm using such light colors, the white kind of just disappears, and I want the sentiment to really stand out, so I'm going to go ahead and use black. So not only did you want to have your ceiling fans off when you're using embossing powder in the summer, you want to make sure you put your lids back on. You can ask me how I know. Obviously, I've done it. And I had embossing powder everywhere. Okay, so we will heat these up. So you might notice that there's a little bit of a break here. I pre-recorded the heating embossing part so that you wouldn't have to listen to the heat tool and I could talk over it. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the other things that are going on that Stampin' Up! Announced last week. I just talked about the bonus days. They also have some new online exclusives out in the store. So if you go out to the store and check those. If you don't already have a demonstrator and you're located in the United States, I'd love to be your demonstrator. I want to talk about my horse and sleigh card class. It's going to be an online class in August, and I'm offering it free to anyone who purchases the horse and sleigh bundle in the month of July from me. You can find that information over on my website. There's also a new kit called the New Blossoms Kit. It's really, really pretty, especially if you like flowers. And they've updated the clearance rack. All right, so let's talk about this piece. Let's go ahead and do this piece. I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap. And we're going to bring in that piece that we just embossed. And you can use sponge daubers or you can use blending brushes. I like the blending brushes. I'm going to start with Lemon Lolly. It's a light color, so it starts out really light. However, this blending brush is already pretty much preloaded with some ink, so it shouldn't take as long to get that deep, intense color instead of a real pastel color. I'm going to And I'm just going to color my flower yellow. I like the blending brushes because they give you a smoother finish than the, and that was Lemon Lily. They give you a smoother finish than the sponge daubers do. This is Parakeet Party. And I'm just going to do the rest of the card in Parakeet Party, or the rest of this piece in Parakeet Party. You just keep going over it, over and over till you get the intensity that you want. So it starts out pretty light, and you just keep going over and over it till you get it as intense as you like. So there's an example of that. And then to get the emboss resist, it's a little bit on the dull side. We're going to take just a tissue, or you could use a rag. We're just going to lightly rub over the embossing part. And if I had done this with darker colors, it would definitely pop. Well, what it does is it takes, I don't know if you can see it, but you really can't even see it there, but it takes the ink off of the embossing powder and makes it pop a little bit more here. Now, over here, I did this one, I blended this with Bubble Bath. And Bubble Bath, and obviously I did a really good job of coloring because here's the Bubble Bath cardstock. So you could get away with stamping directly on and embossing directly on the cardstock. So I did the emboss resist on these with Lemon Lolly, Parakeet Party, Bubble Bath. I mounted these pieces on basic black cardstock. Now to get these details here, it's really a lot easier than you might think. If you have a scoring board, it's super, super easy. If you don't, it's still easy. You'll use your trimmer with a scoring blade in it. And all I did before I added these pieces on is I took a pencil and a ruler and I marked where I wanted them to start. And then I marked how far in I wanted them to go. And then I just simply lined them up, and I picked on purpose so I could use my measurements. I picked 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, and 3/4 of an inch. And then I had my little bitty pencil marks there, which I don't have right now. And I lined this up on a pencil mark, thinking of the ruler, and I scored it. And then I moved it over and I scored the next one. And then I moved it over and I scored the next one. And so you just need to know, and sometimes it helps just to put like a little bit of washi tape or something on your ruler here, if you can see your ruler. But then I did that to this side and this side. It's amazing the detail you can get with just some score lines. All right, card number 4. One card left to go. So this one's called Shadowing. And these aren't the colors you might normally think of for a Get Well card. I started out just with this image and going with this, and then I wanted to put something over here with some die cuts, and Feel Better Soon was what fit in this space. But I kind of like it, you know? Maybe you just had surgery, or maybe you're just feeling down and you want somebody to feel better soon. This is very calming. Typically, we do Feel Better Soon with very bright colors, but this is a very calming colored card. So I chose to use Inked and Tiled with this leaf piece because I just love leaves. You're going to start, bring in that scrap paper again. This is copper clay. You're going to start by inking it up in VersaMark. And you're going to stamp. And you can stamp, you can create your shadow to the right and below or to the left. You can create your shadow in any which direction you want. So I'm going to put mine more to the upper side and the left. So I'm going to kind of move it over a bit. And I chose dark cardstock for a reason so that you could see it. Now you can stamp with a colored ink or you can stamp with white. I chose to use the Whisper White craft ink. And it's kind of sticky, and you can see that I really made a mess there. So I'm going to bring in my wet rag, and I'm going to clean off this mess here so that I don't get that where I don't want it. I'm just going to get it off these edges. Now, you might wonder, why am I not using a stamp positioning tool? My stamp positioning tool moves too far. It moves a full inch one direction or the other, and that full inch would put it way over here, and I just want it to be slightly. So I'm looking at my image, and I realize that my image is in about this much distance from the edge of the actual stamp. So I'm going to line my edge of my stamp up with the edge of the image that I stamped. And it should give me a shadow effect. And then you just finish it off any way you like. I matted this one in white, wrapped a piece of copper clay ribbon around it. Then for this, I simply used the die cuts Want to Say, and I die cut Out Feel Better Soon. And on the inside, I stamped in Lost Lagoon to match the card base twice. I stamped off, and then I stamped it once, and then without re-inking, I stamped it again, going the other direction to create a shadow effect on this one as well. Now I am going to, so there's 5 cards. We have watermarked card. We have regular heat embossing with our sentiment. We have embossing in any color. Don't forget to ask your questions. We have emboss resist, and then we have shadowing. So 5 different ways of using VersaMark, and there are many, many different ways to use VersaMark. So let's take a look at the comments and the questions, and then we'll roll right into the giveaway. So I have Terry here today. She said she set a reminder so she wouldn't miss me and forget. Thank you, Terry. I had asked the question, what's your favorite summer activity? And there's some answers to that. Terry says she loves traveling to see her son when the weather is nice. None of us like to travel when the weather's not nice, right? She's watching me on both YouTube and Facebook, so the comment came up twice. Irene is here. Linnell is here. Linnell's favorite activity is camping, and she's going tomorrow. Oh, can I come? Patty is here. She's watching on the rerun. Actually, Patty, you're here on the live. And her favorite activity is to sit outside in the shade with a friend or two. Oh, what a great way to activity. And Paula is here, and she says, fun. She needs to get busy. Well, maybe if we're starting our Christmas cards, we need to get busy. And so I do have one question from Terry. Terry wants to know, does VersaMark have a re-inker? Yes, it does have a re-inker. It is really, really thick, and so you have to really squeeze really, really hard to get it to come out, but it works wonders. And actually, I re-inked my VersaMark pad just yesterday so that it would work really good for the live. So it looks like, I'll give you a couple seconds to get in a comment, and in the meantime, I will pull up the giveaway tool. All right, whoops. There we go. And got to be smarter than this. So of the 8 of you, I'm going to draw twice. So let's see who the first one is. All right, Paula's the first winner. So Paula, you need to let me know which one of these 5 cards that you want. And then we're going to do it another time. We're going to do it again. So I am going to draw again, and we'll see who gets the next one. Patty. Congratulations, Paula and Patty. Let me put this camera up real quick, and let's see if I can get these arranged in here so that you can see them all. You'll need to let me know which card you would like, and I will get that card out to you. And for those of you who joined on replay after this has ended and you like, comment, and share, I will pick 2 more winners, or actually I'll let the computer pick. I'll let the computer pick 2 more winners, and I'll give away 2 more because, I'm going to have a total of 10 cards now. So we're going to give 4 away this week instead of just 2. I hope you have a wonderful week. If you're someplace where it's really warm, stay inside where it's cool. And if you're someplace where it's cool, stay inside where it's warm. Better yet, if the temperature is ideal, which actually it's been really nice here where I'm at right now, the last couple of days, get out and get a little sunshine and get a little fresh air. And then when you're inside, do some crafting. I will post a video on Friday, and then I will see you next Monday right here at 2 p.m. Central Time. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Happy trails.